to start, it's obviously great to see all of you, all our good friends, and I'm glad we've all survived for another month or whatever. Actually, a little longer than that because we took the end of the year off or on the offense. So congratulations on getting through 2021 and welcome to 2022 on behalf of Renewed and everyone else. It's wonderful to see you all. And we felt I invited two people that most of you probably don't know all that well because I thought they might have great perspective, since Ed and Stephanie have been talking to more of us than anyone else with their renewed leadership efforts. So I thought it was a good chance to sort of do a group pep talk and also some honest discussion about where everybody is business-wise and psychologically as we go into the year, under the general rubric of the fact that almost everybody I've talked to has extensive acceleration plans in place. So, there's certainly good spirit and good energy on top of the fact that I think a lot of us are still a little bit, bruised and battered just culturally and from a business point of view. The PTSD effects of trying to manage companies with so much uncertainty has to take a toll. And I certainly, for one, have relied on all of you, the Renewed group, to sort of, remind me that I'm not crazy. So, I think that's the single best thing about, the most powerful thing that I appreciate about Renewed. So I'll start this call with thanks to all of you. And then obviously I've got, my guests today are Stephanie Williford from EB Medicine and Ed Coburn from Cabot Wealth. All of you know them well. And we're just going to talk about that. What does acceleration mean, and where are we, and that sort of thing. So I'll start the discussion. We'll do our usual 25 minutes plus or minus, just sort of batting around the topic, and then go to open discussion for the remainder of the 45 minutes. And I think all of us want you to come away from this today with a knowing you got a lot of friends behind you. You got, maybe some good business conditions, as I said, winds at your back. So do you I'll start, Stephanie, and I know, we've all battled and struggled. Do you agree that that's sort of the way we're going? Are we accelerating into 2022?
Absolutely. I think onwards and upwards. The Renewed members that I'm talking to absolutely are excited for this year. I know for my company, we're launching a new product into an adjacent market. So we are not aggressive product launchers. So that's a pretty big deal for us. And it's challenging in our market because physicians are still really struggling with COVID, but we're not going to let that slow us down. We think we have a really good product that's going to meet a need. And that's what I've just continuously heard from others and in this community, regardless of industry, is figuring out a way to meet a need, solve a problem for your customers and develop solutions. It's still the right time to be doing that and launching new products, looking for investment opportunities and ways to grow.
Yeah, there was a lot in that one, Stephanie. That was a good answer. Maybe we could just end the call now.
That's all I got. It's downhill from here.
Yeah. Well, some of the things I'd like to highlight in there that it is challenging. I think during COVID, it's gotten tougher to do product launches, to go to market that you mentioned. And I think the process has become more sophisticated in tougher markets. So like you talked about the customer-led aspect of your product launch. I mean, I agree with you. I'm hearing that from everyone. Ed, do you agree? We're pushing harder, it's tougher, but we're pushing. Do you agree, or what's your perspective?
Yeah. One of the things, Stephanie and I also lead a monthly, the Leadership Council meetings that are for the premium members of Renewed. And it's a great opportunity to we dig into each other's businesses in a way that much deeper, and sort of seeing the psychological scars that have accumulated over the last 2 years, and now some of which are starting to fade and heal. That particularly has been a great barometer. And while I wouldn't say everybody I talk to is feeling like, oh yeah, boy, that pandemic is entirely in the rearview mirror and everything's great. It's relatively few people that still feel that they're mired in it, and it tends to be very industry specific. There are still a few industries that are being, particularly hard hit, and so there's that. But I think our experience, sort of certainly personally, we've launched. We've more than doubled the number of products we had over the last 3 years. We've, I think I've heard from so many people that are, the events people, it's still far from, settled back down again, but it doesn't feel like it's in the free fall that it had been in, where like, crap, what are we going to do to make revenue? That live events are happening again. People are figuring out hybrid events and all of that kind of thing where they need to. So I feel like people have found their footing again, is the sense I'm getting. And I think we used accelerating into 2022 deliberately in the title of this, because that is, again, not a universal sense, but I think an overwhelming sense from people is they're looking for growth. They're looking to do more marketing. They're looking to, add staffing positions, maybe add back staffing positions that might have been cut, or growing positions or whatever. So, I think all of those things, there's a pretty strong sense of that. And obviously, during the discussion after, we can see how everybody in the room today is feeling about this. But
yeah, I look forward to the discussion on that. I think there's something built into what you said there, Ed, and looking at the group that's on the call today. And it occurs to me that one of the things that has happened, and maybe partially because of the exhaustion of fighting to preserve what we had before COVID and then trying to grow on top of that. But I think since we have a lot of business owners or the senior manager on this call, I think one of the effects of that is we become even more reliant on our top managers. So when you talk about more marketing or more product, that we've had to delegate that and rely on people. And I think for a lot of us on this call, certainly, for me and Lucretia, hi Lucretia, the key managers in the company have responded surprisingly and incredibly well. I think sometimes with more resilience than I've had as a CEO. So is Ed, would you say that's sort of part of maybe strengthening the organization below the senior management has been one of the good things that's going to help us in 2022?
I would absolutely say that. I think there's been sort of a consolidation of sort of, solidifying our base, our organizational base, in a good way. And looking around the room today, there are one or two of us that have been in this industry for at least 2 or 3 years. And, and we've been through ups and downs before. And one of the things that I love about this industry that's kept me in it for my entire career is how unbelievably resilient we are as entrepreneurs, as business owners and operators, and as an industry. If there are industries that are better at that, I don't know of them. We're just awesome people. to hang out with. So thank you, everybody. Big round of applause to all of you.
Yeah. Well, I should say in that regard, and like the awesomeness factor, since you're on the call today, and despite the fact that a lot of us aren't around SIA quite as much anymore, I still get your emails, and you've done an incredible job of sort of tracking examples of people who are still throwing energy at the market. So, you're like sort of a daily dose of don't throw in the towel, keep going. So, which you've done for a long time. That's nothing new for you, Ron, but it's particularly appreciated right now. But so I think what Stephanie and Ed and I wanted to do is sort of talk about, when you talk about accelerating, like where are people making their bets and where are they seeing results? But just before we go into like sort of doing a checklist of what comes to mind in that regard, I think we have to comment that the capital markets seem to have not even noticed that we've had a pandemic. There's more money flying around than ever. And
Pandemic? What pandemic?
Stephanie,
Yeah.
you want to just comment on the fact that what we're doing is in the environment of huge acquisition activity. Either Ed, do you want to chime in, or Stephanie, just to comment on that before we go to the business management and strategy topics?
Yeah, I actually attended on just Tuesday a seminar talking about M&A. So I have several stats like right on the top of my mind, including that there's literally over $1 trillion in dry powder ready to be invested. And they are aggressively looking for small and medium-sized businesses. And interestingly, to do either partial or whole acquisitions. And so it's an interesting time if you're considering selling your business, or if you want capital, that you can get a significant capital infusion into the business without selling the entire thing. And what often happens in a crisis is everybody thinks it's a bad time to sell and they pull back, or the business didn't do as well. So supply goes way down and demand is way up. And what happens when that occurs? It means you can actually get a really good multiple on your business right now. So it is something to think about for those that are, interested in bringing on a partner, or, selling, that there's multiple different ways to get capital, and a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. I think that reality that you just described with some precise numbers is, of course, something that all of us have to keep in the back of our mind, because when you're thinking about adding value and how hard we're all working, and in some cases how exhausted some of us are, maybe the algorithm changes just a little bit. But I think the important message is knowing that's out there, measuring your own efforts, like just being honest with ourselves. Is what I'm doing today creating value more than selling out? I think that's a more active question that should be on all of our minds for the people on the call who are in ownership. Ed, do you want to add to that?
Not too much. Nothing you mentioned, Stephanie, was a surprise, but it's still impressive to hear numbers like that. Obviously, in our the closest big deal to us recently was Ann Holland's sale for $120 million for a business that started at 0 10 years ago. 0 to 120 in 10 years. Wow. And I've heard of other people, doing deals where, it's about timing, deals that needed to be closed by the end of the year, where the buyers were throwing money at things because they needed to get the deal done. I mean, there's the financial markets really didn't slow down at all during this pandemic. So they've chugged along. as Stephanie's mentioned, a lot of supply came off the market. A lot of sellers paused, I think, and thought it's not an opportune time to sell. So it seems, I know we've got John McGovern on the call, so I feel a little self-conscious talking about this at all. I should shut up. But
You're
but,
doing
you know,
great. You're doing great, Ed. Keep going.
Thanks, John. I'll send you that check afterwards for that comment. It does seem like a good time to be. I think it's always a good time to be focusing on value. Really every major decision we should be making as business owners should be with value in mind. But I think particularly right now, and Stephanie, you mentioned, there's interest in small and medium-sized companies. I mean, one thing in our industry is a lot of us are looking up at small. That's a reason to be accelerating right now, is that, if you really want to tap into this market or have that possibility, you need to grow enough so you can grow your management team, so you can grow your revenues, so that people think you're a big enough small company to be worth the effort.
Be a player. Yeah. John, since you got called out, do you want to add in anything real quickly on just that environment?
Yeah. I mean, sure. I mean, the MJ Biz folks, it was really the perfect storm, like the stars aligning for a market in its infancy. I mean, really, they're only halfway through the number of states that are ultimately probably going to legalize rec-wise, and they're at 27,000 attendees. Yeah. They managed to keep this national event stake in the ground in a market that actually operates in a very regional way. They can't cross state lines, all that kind of stuff. So that sort of feeds into the idea that ultimately it could be a very regionalized, business and like sort of repeat mini MJ business multiple times. They managed to keep the walk-in rate at an average of $600 for an exhibit-driven trade show. It's just incredible. And most of that very profitable. So that meant that the content was staying up to par. They had a very sort of fierce editorial view, and editorial acumen, and Anne and Cassandra are really smart. They complement each other really well. I think that's important for independent owners, to sort of know yourself, right, and know what you're good at. And they kind of put their egos aside in terms of what they were good at and worked really well together.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
The best thing about that deal is it helps everybody, I've been saying, right? I mean,
yes.
Emerald was willing to risk a big part of their balance sheet on that deal, with Omicron growing during the time that we were going from LOI to close. And it says a lot. I think event buyers have the fact that a pandemic could happen again. They have it priced into their models. They're acting very confidently, much more than I thought that they ever would at the beginning of all this drama. So, so that is, it helps everybody.
No, that's great. Yeah, we're planning on having, by the way, Anne's coming back. She's done renewed stuff. Ron, maybe we can work with you on this, but Anne's coming back for the June meeting we're putting together as a keynote to talk about the deal. And those of you who sat in on, the webinar we had with her in 2021, she's full disclosure. So if you want to learn,
you could hardly yank the ego out of her. I mean, she was so humble and so
she's
transparent.
What a joy. But anyway, she's keynoting. So there have been a couple other deals, but so that's out there, and we can't forget it, that's occurring in the larger marketplace. and Ed's right. Many of us are on the looking up at small from that point of view, but we're all getting a lot closer. So so while while we're working hard in 2022, I think before we like open up for discussions, Ed and Stephanie and I wanted to talk about the sort of like where are people making their bets, and there's a whole list. I guess we could do a survey of people on this call and get a very interesting answer to that question. But based on the evidence we assumed when we prepared this call, some things seem to be coming to the top as far as where people are making changes. So I just want to sort of run through a bunch of those quickly, and Ed and Stephanie, quick answers on those. One I would say that is there, but we didn't discuss. So, and this is the least exciting one, so I'll throw this one in first, is I think a lot of us are benefiting from cost control. So so that's helping us, is pushing the bottom line. It's giving us a little more cash to make decisions. It's not entrepreneurial, but it's good business management. Ed, Stephanie, would you agree that that's helping us right now?
Absolutely. I mean, I know we took we were very lucky in both 2020 and 21, grew a little bit. So we weren't pressured to have to cut costs, but our margins still aren't great. So we did take a tough look at that and say, which of these activities are driving value and which are not, and start questioning if we really need some of the things that we thought we needed. And so we're, anticipating to continue to improve our margins this year.
Sure. Yeah. So that's one area. And I know a lot of you, this has been relevant, certainly still relevant for us. I mean, a second area that's driving growth, and I'll jump around here a little bit, and Ed and Stephanie, maybe you can chime in with the ones that you think are most important. But for a large number of people on this call did virtual events last year, which were more profitable, but much smaller. They're now going back to live. So you're going to see huge top line growth in 2022 for the events people, just because of that transition. In our case, we have one event that's about $450,000. It went down to 125 in 21, but it was more profitable. Now it's going back. So, that hugely helps, obviously. So that's one factor. Ed, you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the case. And the events business, there's been a lot of toothpaste squeezed out of the tube that's never going back in the events industry, and for good and for bad. Things have opened up. For us, we only did one event a year, and one of the things, we've had so much luck with launching new products and other things that we decided, and we went online 2 years in a row with it, the first 2 years of COVID, and we saw participation dwindling, and we just decided this year we're getting out of the event business. I've got, one thing I've experienced here is the need to prioritize that. Thinking about adding value, where can we grow the value of the enterprise more? And I realized it's not in events for us. That's and I will say, Renewed had its summit online last year, and it was phenomenal content. And given that, it had good attendance, but we've realized, our market, we think really wants to be meeting in person. And this June, we will have an in-person summit. So
yeah, I think that's the important point. In your case, it's sort of moving away from events, but I think you're essentially saying creating a better story about your company because it's more focused.
Yeah.
That theme, I think, that's a very important one. Like we got to work harder on the things that really work. So we got to stop working on the things that don't really work. That's what I'm hearing in your comment there.
Perfect.
Earlier, just as we started up, we mentioned, passing more responsibility to the best leaders we had, or adding more leaders. Do you want to comment on that quickly? I think I'm hearing that from a lot of people.
Sure. Stephanie?
Yeah, we have actually put 2 people in management positions, and hired additional people. We have a now 14-person team, so we're still small. And we, one of the hardest things for me to learn as a leader was I'm doing the best job when I'm actually not needed. And the more that I can get out of their way and let them do what they were hired to do, the better off we are. And that's a little scary, but the more that I've done it, the better results we've gotten. And we've identified some revenue streams we didn't even really know were there, and put somebody in charge of growing that business, and then hired someone to report into her. So that's definitely important. The next question on my mind is developing a new manager's leadership skills. And, we've put in place a program to help train and develop her, and also looking at other resources. And then I think what's most important too is then thinking about what coaching, mentorship that you're providing to those new managers, and making sure that you're really giving them the tools and the resources to support them and make sure that they're successful.
I agree. I think there is a mood of hiring, but and we probably won't be able to get into it now, but hiring both people who have direct revenue creation impact, whether it could be on the sales side, but more likely it's what I've always called sort of starting a division, having that entrepreneurial skill. And then also looking across your however many employees you have, even if it's a small group, 5, 7, there are skills in there that need to be tapped now. And if they're missing, we need to bring those resources in, either, if it's a marketing skill, maybe you're using a consulting firm, like, a couple of people on the call do that work, or what Helen Coetzee does, or, that. So we're all looking to get those advanced skills at the highest level, because it's hard to succeed. So that's.
Can I add one thought in this subject area? You when you were talking about sort of cost cutting, we didn't do a lot of cost cutting because at the time we had more leverage in adding new products and growing products. So that's what we focused on, and we haven't added net staff. And so one of the things that's enabled us to do that is we did spend a lot of time streamlining systems, working out procedures that enabled us to do way more, get way more done. And, things like realizing the conference took way too much time relative to its return, it was an extension of that. And, I'll take some credit for that, but part of it, we also got, Nancy, in the middle of COVID, we made her our COO, Nancy Brand, as many of you know, Nancy Graves. And so, and she's helped us enormously in sort of, again, kind of solidifying things and streamlining them. So, we literally are producing twice as many products with the exact same number of people. But we've increased sales substantially, and top and bottom line. So
yeah,
I want to echo that too, because we actually were similar. We had 14 last year and have 14 this year. 2 people that left, we didn't replace their position exactly. We looked at that and said, okay, maybe we don't need this. What we really would be more impactful and generate higher returns are these other positions. The other thing that's enabled us to stay very lean, particularly on our marketing team, is what you just kind of alluded to, David, of using contractors and consultants and agencies to get work done. I'm a huge fan of Upwork.com. Everybody I've recommended to that usually has given me great feedback, because you can hire an expert that's really good and on an hourly basis at a very affordable rate. And instead of trying to train, your marketing people to be analytics and data and copywriters, et cetera, you can get people that specialize in those areas. So it's been very helpful for us to be able to stay lean and to be able to adjust as needed, when we have more needs for different skill sets, to find them at affordable rates without committing to a full-time staff position.
Yep. That's great. Those are so developing and training, but also borrowing, if you can. Maybe the theme here is that I think we all learned during COVID that we had to keep moving ahead. It was a little harder work, and we all had to admit what we didn't know or what resources we didn't have, and figure out creative ways to find it, whether training people we had, moving them up, changing positions, or if not that, going outside, relying more heavily on consultants, outside experts, and particularly with new initiatives, it takes a community now. I think it's really hard to do it just straight up entrepreneurial. So I think what I might do now, because we're just to open it up, and we've got like some, if you're looking at the chat, they're like what Kat just posted and stuff. There's some really good stuff in the chat. So what I might do is just list some of the topic. When Ed and Stephanie and I did the planning call for this, we sort of listed a group of things that we had heard people are investing in, and some of those. So I'll just run through that list and then open it up for discussions about individual major bets that people on the call are making. But the things that came up for us were obviously leadership that we talked about. There's, I think, there are investments in technology that are very different from a couple of years ago. We need tech support, but it's not, it's sort of moved on from 3 or 4 years ago where it was Pardot and Salesforce. There's a whole new realm of subscription technology out there now. There's different pricing models in the market. So all these things are changing and the technology is changing. That's one topic. There's a whole bunch of different things to change the relationship with the customer. People are investing in that, whether it's more rapid product development to do scaling in smaller business groups. Like if your market was 500 people in a subset, now we're looking at 40 people in the subset. How do you create very rapid product development for these smaller subsets? There's a lot of investment around there. There's a lot of investment in product launches, but I think the product launch technology is, because we're looking more like bigger businesses. You need better business planning, you need better strategic planning, you might need more financial resources, you might need more partners. So there's a lot of activity about working in partnership, I think, are some of the things we've heard. And I think a lot of people are investing in richer data, richer content, trying to find ways to enrich what they have. These are things we've heard from renewed members all over the place. And Ron, I'll call you out again. Those are all very common themes in what you're writing about, as you and the people you talked about. So those are some of the things. I wonder if just Kat, I called you out a second ago. Do you want to just talk about what you're doing as a way to kick off, and then other people can chime in on what they're hearing?
Mm-hmm. Kat, you're muted if you're.
I actually don't see her on here anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we may have just dropped her. Well, I recognize. Anyway, read the comments. So so those are some of the things we talked about. Do other people want to jump in with some of their experiences just to
Can you hear me
wrap
now?
up?
Can you hear me
Yep.
now?
There we
Yes,
go.
I
There's
can.
Kat.
This is
There you are.
Okay, sorry about it. I pushed my mute on my phone, my desk phone, because there was a lawnmower outside, so I apologize. Hello, everyone. By the way, Stephanie, I want to thank you for putting these together because I really appreciate it. This is my second one that I've attended, and I'm really learning a lot from everybody in the same space. It's really nice, and I wanted to tell you, I mean, I've struggled like everybody in building these media platforms, but the way I got started was I spent 30 years in executive search. You can see if you go to the Tax Connection site, in the footer, there's 5 columns of links. In that second column, I think it's the 4th link down, you'll see executive search services. So that was kind of my base. And the reason I decided to create the media site was I had tax professionals tell me, they said, Kat, if anybody can create a media site like LinkedIn for tax professionals, it's you. So that's how I got started. I'm sitting on a 1 million tax professional database right now. I haven't even barely touched it. So, you know, gone out, I've got 17,000 members. Obviously, you go out and get members, they don't want to pay. So I had to, you know, in the beginning, and I've got some paying. I don't have all 17,000 paying. It's just how it works for everybody. I know that because I had some very smart people educate me along the way in that regard. So you have to figure out a way to get your brand out there and then have folks, you know, they fall in love with your site. And the way I've been able to drive the members is really interesting. The members on our site are very loyal. And I've been able to drive it. What I did is I created a blog on WordPress. It's the only part of my site that's on WordPress. The rest of it is coded up. It's cost me millions of dollars to code it up and 10 years of work. So what I did is I went out to the members and listened, because a lot of them have great content, but it wasn't getting distributed anywhere. It was on their site. So when I reached out to them, and we've been distributing their blogs out to the community, and that's how I grew the members. That was one way, and that was very valuable because I'm also making them, you know, rock stars on the site. The other thing that I did that was really important in terms of growing the membership is you really have to get on the phone and talk to folks, and that's a natural for me because that's what I do all day. But because people want that connectivity, you need to call them on the phone. If you want to create a good member, and it's hard work, but just try to, you know, get out there and talk to as many people as you possibly can and show them what you're doing. But building any of these sites, you know, I'm impressed with all of you because I know how hard it is to build. And until you've done something like this, you really don't appreciate it. You could go on for years not making any money before you do it. But then, you know, I had to figure out a way to monetize it. And what's interesting is I suffered greatly when I left my search firm. And then I built this media site. Just financially, it's awful. You all know what it's like. And then, so what happened is, all of a sudden the market came back around in the tax area, and all of a sudden search was on fire. All these recruiters have disappeared that used to be my competitors, because everybody thinks taxes is not interesting. I don't know about tax. I'm a marketing person. I don't know. I couldn't do my tax return to save my life. I'm a connector, and all of you are connectors. So
I think the
story I'm doing.
The story there of creating of taking a market you had and then figuring out how to monetize it effectively in a completely different way that's common to, I think, what we're all trying to do, Kat. So that's a lot of hard work you're describing, but it's finally yielding the benefits nicely. I also appreciate your rock star comments.
It took 10 years to be able to, you know, to do it. So don't give up in the deepest, darkest hours when you're not making any money. You can't pay the rent, you can't pay the electricity bill, whatever. I've been through all that. And where I had everything as a headhunter, then all of a sudden I lost everything building the media site, and now it's come back. And fortunately, tax is a big issue for everybody. So I'm in a hot space right now that's definitely on fire. And these companies can't find folks.
No?
Suzanne,
go ahead.
I was going to say, adding on to what Kat's saying, how hard it is to build a business and launch a product. And, so kudos to everybody on this call, because we made it and accomplished something pretty great. Most don't. So I think that resilient message is a important one to communicate, but also thinking about, how to utilize that to accelerate growth. One of the things that we're looking at, rather than building things from scratch, is buying them. And so, what products are there out there that, it's a great content or great community or event, but really hasn't been, maximized. The potential hasn't been maximized. They don't know how to market it or sell it. And so that's one area that we're looking at now as a way to kind of, reduce the risk and the pain of launching new things, is looking at add-ons. And so just kind of going back to one of our earlier topics too, about doing small acquisitions can be a way for growth.
Sure. Mark, do you
Good morning, everyone. We're not doing any lawn mowing in British Columbia right now, Kat.
How about snow blowing?
Yeah. I just want to talk about personnel for a moment. We had a successful sale of half of our company last year, thanks to John and others. And we're actually a smaller team and focusing a lot of effort on doing some things we haven't done before, like taking one of our products into the advertising area. And obviously that's a function of what the market will allow and what's possible, but that's going to be a very interesting development this year. The other thing I'd add is that looking at your talent and freeing them up to do what they do best can be a great multiplier. And I know this for a fact because 32 years ago, I hired a young lady from Jane's Defense Weekly by the name of Ann Holland.
Whatever happened to her?
And then got the hell out of the way while she went.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to summarize all those different experiences and where you just said, Mark, but I think somehow that's representative of everything. And maybe there's an interesting point. We've been invested in audience development, product development. Everyone on this call has done a lot of that, but I think there are essentials now that are different than they were 2 years ago. And we're not going to have enough time to outline this in today's sort of pep rally call, but I'm hearing it in all the comments that like Kat's focus on that market that she just described. Mark, you empowering employees, what Stephanie and Ed have said about needing essential skills, about better planning, about more investment, like having the courage to make more investment. Those themes are all, I think they all sound a little bit more sophisticated. They're moving away from the entrepreneurial approach to the business growth to really a more, sophisticated business planning, kind of approach. And those, selling a business like Mark just said, or Julian, what you did, I think those are some of the results of good efforts to take a more sophisticated approach to that question. Any
You see,
good.
I just saw Julian's got a hand up.
Yeah, Julian, go ahead, and then Dan has a point, so maybe we can finish up with those two with a cheerleading round and get back to business. Julian?
So yeah, I got an issue to do with resilience, which is it's a very tight employment market. There's a high risk of losing people, so it's necessary to reward people that you want to hold on to. But how it's when you're a small team, and so my current company, we only have 11, 12 employees. You're facing a big risk if someone leaves the company. So you can't afford to double everyone up. it's really difficult to build that resilience in. So we're trying to do some work to work out who does what and make sure someone else knows about it, at least, make things operationally transparent. But when you don't have the option to recruit a new person to to have a deputy for everyone, you can't have that succession strategy. I do feel pretty exposed compared with my old business, where it was possible to say, well, we want a number 2 in each function.
I have a couple of thoughts on that, Julian, because that is absolutely tough. One of the things, as I talked about sort of streamlining our business and sort of prioritizing, where are the areas where we really are adding value to the enterprise versus, sort of nice to have extras. That's been very much part of because we've got about the same as you and Stephanie. I think we've got a dozen staff people, and then we've got analysts, another dozen or so analysts. But so one of the things we've done is, in streamlining, is look for opportunities where we can create job descriptions that overlap more. So we don't have 2 people in a position, but we have some resiliency where, if one person is out, there are 2 people that know parts of that job and can do it. So that's been very much a focus. So like what Stephanie described, the body count has remained the same. The job descriptions have evolved, and we've sort of simplified those down with exactly that idea in mind. Because you're absolutely right that we're remarkably vulnerable when we've got these little tiny staffs that you lose one key person at the wrong time, and that can be certainly your quarter, if not your year.
Yeah, you do have to adjust your product development plannings based on that scary. Julian, after selling a bigger company and starting again, you're getting directly exposed to it. Obviously, one of the most compelling arguments for growth is to be able to get some redundancy into your organization. That risk definitely goes down, as you just seen directly. That's an important point that we're all exposed to that. Are people just there are a lot of comments in response to that, Julian, by the way, you can see. So but I do have the feeling that that Stephanie's early comment about investing in outside resources or whatever to try to have some contractual certainty that you won't get deserted in the middle of a project. I think people are getting more and more creative about that. And I think also some people are seeing, I'm a little bit surprised if I'm seeing more loyalty almost in some cases, realizing that it's kind of a dangerous world out there. And, if it's a nice place to work and it's, people know they're secure, they tend to be staying, I think. So there are different trends going on there. Good luck with that. And that's a topic unto itself. I think there are sort of a couple.
David, John has his hand up.
Sure, go ahead.
Was that me?
Yeah.
Oh, not on people, but back to what we're saying about small acquisitions. If you think you're not a buyer, an interesting exercise that you could do, and I could help you, is, take out a spreadsheet and say you're going to buy 100,000, any number, 100,000 in EBITDA, do a modest growth rate of like 5% year over year for 10 years. The math gets really interesting in terms of what that generates. And if you could pay a fair number for it and get that money back in 3 to 4 years, you should be able to. That's the math that the private equity guys do, and they see that in 8 years' time, if they buy EBITDA, they do organic too, but they understand math, right? And they understand money, so they buy EBITDA, and the math is really compelling on exit. hopefully if you add value and can exit at a higher number, at a higher multiple than what you bought that asset at.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe, it's a 45-minute segment, and so we're a little bit over. So I think there's 10 different topics that we could do entire sessions on that have been suggested. So I'll sort of wrap up to say, to all of you on this call, you've got a great community here. First of all, Ed just posted some of the things Renewed has going on to help keep you all connected, if for nothing more than just a pat on the back and to tell you, the reminder that you're not crazy, which goes a long way. But the practical business solutions about continuing to move forward, everything we've discussed on this call, I would say, is at a more, there are more resource demands, both financially, skill sets, time to market, all things we're talking about are taking increased resources. So I would say the good news is we're starting to get a little wind at our back. We're all still working hard in that. And I think we're all, as a group, we're all getting more and more sophisticated at what it means to do the job well so that we reduce risk, because this is not a time where you can afford to make mistakes. So to wrap up, let's keep the discussion going on Guild as we usually do. It's fantastic to see all of you. Congratulations as I started out, and stay with Renewed. I need your companionship as the year goes on. So I'm glad we're all in this together. So.
Thank you, David. It was great being here, and thank you, everybody. Please always give us your feedback, ask questions, let us know how we can help. That's what this community is here for.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Ed and Stephanie, thank you for everything you've done for Renewed, but also just thanks for trying to summarize what you're seeing in this very loose conversation today. So
thanks, David. And I will just do a quick plug, because there are a lot of leaders and owners of companies here who I know aren't yet premium members of Renewed, but we're keeping a huge amount of Renewed activities free and wide open. There are some, though, we have Bruce Rhodes on the call, who's the executive director. There are some real costs to operating Renewed, and so we have established a premium membership. If you want information about that, go to the website or contact me or Stephanie or Bruce, and we're happy to talk to you about that. But as I look around the room here today, there are lots of people here who we'd love to have you be joining and helping continue to grow this community for us. So just a little shameless self-promotion for Renewed.
Okay, that's always a good note to end on. So
and great to see everybody. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes. Yeah. Be well, everyone. See you next month.